All right, we are still working in lesson 11 in module 2, which is on multiplying integers. So real quick review over just our last note video here. What I want to look at here is example 1, where it says find 3 times a negative 5. If you're unfamiliar, let's clear this up. When you have 3 parenthesis negative 5, when you have a number times a parenthesis, that means to multiply. Don't really use the X anymore. If you want to put a dot in there, you can. Okay? That's the first thing I want you to realize. The second thing I want you to look at is I want you to look at that they have different signs. And if we go back to kind of our rules here, if you're multiplying integers with different signs, the answer is going to be negative. So when I look at this right here, positive times a negative is going to be negative. Then I can focus on negative what? Well, 3 times 5 is 15. The multiplying of numbers is not changing. Okay, the multiplication rules that you practiced a long time ago, they're still true. Now we're working on whether answers be positive or negative. Same thing here. If we have negative 6 times 8, again, different signs. So if they have different signs, my answer is negative. What's 6 times 8? 48. You guys, make sure you can do this without a calculator, okay? Because you're not going to be allowed to use one, I don't think, on your review or test. But different signs, multiplication rule stays the same. Answers can be negative if they're different signs. Notice this one, the second number was negative, and this one, the first number is negative. Doesn't matter, because commutative property, multiply in any order. If one's positive, one's negative, they're different. But what about if they have the same sign? What if we want to multiply integers with the same signs? Okay. Well, it says the product, that again means to multiply, of two integers with the same sign is positive. Well, that makes sense. If we had two positive numbers, 2 times 6, 12. That's the multiplication you've been doing. But a negative times a negative is also positive, and this seems weird, right? We want to think of a negative times a negative as negative, because when we add a negative to a negative, we keep going further down the number line, it's a negative. But a negative times a negative is a positive. So let me kind of give you a little example of why that is. It says the product of two positive integers is positive, right here. But you can use a pattern to find the sign of the product of two negative integers. So I want you to kind of look at the little pattern I gave here. We're multiplying by a negative 3, okay? So what we just learned is if they have different signs, the answer is negative. So positive 2 times negative 3 is going to be a negative 6. 2 times 3 is 6, positive times a negative. 1 times a negative 3. Well, 1 times 3 is 3, positive times a negative, negative. 0 times negative 3. Well, 0 times anything is 0. So let's pause right here and let's see kind of a pattern that's going on. If I wanted to look down, because I'm going 2, 1, 0, what do I do to negative 6 to get negative 3? Well, I add 3. What do I do to negative 3 to get 0? Well, I add 3. So if this pattern continues, I'm going to keep adding a 3. So let's see what that does to our numbers here. Negative 1 times negative 3. Well, I know 1 times 3 is 3. Is it going to be a positive 3 or a negative 3? Well, if I take 0 and I add 3 to it, it's a positive 3. Negative 2 times negative 3. Well, I know 2 times 3 is 6. If I add 3 to 3, I get 6, a positive 6. And this is kind of where this comes from. If you have two negatives, your solution is going to be positive. Again, that's different than addition. That's the tricky part. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Find negative 11 times negative 9. Well, again, remember that means multiplication, the parentheses here. And I'm going to look and I'm going to say, you know what? They have the same sign. And I know if they have the same sign, it's positive. So this is going to be a positive what? Well, 11 times 9 is 99. Let's look at this one. They also have the same sign. Same sign means it's positive. So 3 times 10 is 30. But look over here. All three of these numbers have the same sign. Does that mean they're all positive? Well, let's follow some order of operations and see what we get. I'm going to tell you what, it's going to be different when you have three numbers. If we follow order of operations, we're going to multiply from left to right. And I'm going to go negative 3 times negative 4. Negative times a negative, positive. 3 times 4 is 12. And then I'm going to go 12 times my negative 2. Well, now I have a positive times a negative. Different signs. Different signs means negative. And 12 times 2 is 24. All right, so when we say the same sign, 2 of them. Or like we'll talk later, or 4 or 6. But if you have an odd number of negatives, your answer is going to be negative. If you have an even number of negatives, your answer is positive. And we'll talk more about that later. But be careful when you see like 3 terms or 3 numbers or 4 numbers or 5 numbers that you're multiplying. Okay? All right, same sign, positive. 2 at a time. If there's 3, be very careful. Take them one step at a time. All right, so let's look at a couple word problems and we'll be done here. A submersive, so kind of like a submarine. Some vehicle that's going can be submerged underwater is diving from the surface of the water at a rate of 90 feet per minute. So for diving, we're going down. That tells me that that's going to be a negative 90, that integer. What is the depth of the submersive after 7 minutes? Well, notice we have per minute here. So we always multiply by the number of minutes. So I'm going to go times 7. Well, a negative times a positive is going to be a negative. 90 times 7. Well, 9 times 7 is 63. And then add a 0. So it'd be a negative 630. Okay? And again, you guys, if I know I said no calculator. Okay, so talk to me if you have some issues with that. But if I did, I'm not going to worry about the sign. I'm just going to do 9 times. Nope. I'm going to do, how about 90 times, oh goodness. Let me start over, right? I gotta have a mistake every video. 90 times 7, you get 630. So if you need to use a calculator for that or to double check, I'll be okay with it until we get to the test. So they're going to dive down a depth of 630 feet. Now, Mr. Simon's bank account automatically deducts, there's an important word there, $4 for a monthly maintenance fee. Write a multiplication expression to represent the maintenance fee for 1 year. Then we got to find its product. That's the solution to a multiplication problem, and explain what it's meaning. Well, if I'm deducting $4, I'm going to think of this as a negative 4. Okay, so deducting is a negative 4. But do I multiply it by 1? Is it taking out $4 per year? No, it's taking out $4 per month. So in 1 year, that's 12 months. So I'm going to go negative 4 times 12. That represents my year. Negative times a positive is going to be negative. 4 times 12 is going to be 48. That's the product. Now explain its meaning. Remember, we're taking $4 out every single month. So a negative 48 is going to mean that $48 has been deducted from the account over the year. I'm going to say for the year. All right, so we've started with multiplying in our rules. Same sign, positive, no matter what. Different signs, negative, no matter what. Couple things to be careful of. We're going to be careful if we have 3 numbers we're multiplying. We're going to take it step by step. And we need to really, as we start doing word problems, making sure if it's going down or decreasing or something, or identifying the integer as a negative. And we also want to make sure we understand what the answer means. Negative 48 is great. What does that mean? Well, it makes a difference if we're saying we're deducting that amount of money out of an account. So be sure that you can explain what your answers mean.